I was 18 when I caught my sister Sarah lifting up Chase's shirt and touching his ABS. I was 22 when Chase, pressured by his family, married me. But everyone knew that even after the wedding, he still couldn't let go of his intense love for my sister. Later, I filed for divorce. He was silent for a long time before signing the papers. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask," said. At 28, I returned for Chase and Sarah's wedding. He looked at the man beside me with a cold, unsettling gaze. "So that's why you were so eager to divorce me for him." For the past 3 years, rumors about me had swirled. He said I was playing games, trying to win Chase back. Even my parents believed it. On the day of the divorce, Mom specifically warned me, "Now that you're divorced, don't contact him anymore. Your sister injured her leg, and she needs Chase. Don't upset her." Seeing my silence, she continued, "That marriage was always meant for your sister. If she hadn't gone abroad for her studies, it wouldn't have been you." Sarah and Chase were the envy of everyone in our social circle. But on the eve of their wedding, Sarah ran away. The news of their union had already been announced. Faced with the pressure, Chase's family immediately decided to replace Sarah with me. I don't know how they convinced him, but Chase ultimately agreed to marry me. My parents found out after we'd already signed the papers. Chase hadn't treated me badly. He gave me half his assets. My parents summoned me home that night. They interrogated me, accusing me of being heartless and taking half of Chase's wealth. "Taylor, how did I raise you? Did you marry him just for his money?" Sarah, leaning on her crutches, was crying. "Taylor, are you blaming me? Blaming me for taking Chase back?" My parents interrupted her. "Chase should have been your husband. If you hadn't run away from the wedding, you and Chase would have had kids by now." Sarah loved Chase, but she loved dancing more. Shortly after accepting Chase's proposal, she received an offer from a renowned dance troupe abroad. She left Chase without hesitation and went overseas. For 3 years, she and Chase had almost no contact. Then one night, Chase received an overseas call. He leaned against me to study his breathing. He answered the call right in front of me. Because I was so close, I clearly heard a crying voice on the other end. Chase froze. 1, 5, 10. 30 seconds passed before Chase reacted. He quickly grabbed a robe and rushed out. Chase didn't come back that night. The next day, I learned from my parents that Sarah had a dance accident and broke her leg. Chase had personally brought her back, although she was staying at my parents' house. Chase handled everything related to Sarah. My parents even tried to talk some sense into me. "Don't take it to heart. Your sister can't dance anymore. She's heartbroken, and only Chase can comfort her." My parents had always favored Sarah. She was beautiful, smart, and talented. I was just a bookworm, boring, and not good at making people happy. Everyone revolved around the injured Sarah, including my husband. His patience with me was wearing thin. One evening, he promised to pick me up, but left me waiting in the rain for 2 hours. I got sick from the rain and developed a high fever. Chase had to leave Sarah to take care of me in the hospital. But my mother believed it was a tactic to get Chase back. She yelled hysterically, "Because you called Chase away. Your sister tried to kill herself last night. Why are you, a healthy person, competing with a disabled person?" I looked at her in disbelief. "But Chase is my husband. So what? That marriage belongs to her. You stole her husband." But it was she who begged me to marry him. Before Sarah left for her studies, she came to me and tried to persuade me to marry Chase. "Taylor, I know you like him. This is a good opportunity, isn't it? Why let the water flow outside the family? You wouldn't want Chase to be with another woman, would you?" I remained silent. Sarah became anxious. "Please, Taylor. Or are you worried I'll come back and compete with you for Chase?" My expression shifted slightly. She breathed a sigh of relief. "Don't worry. I won't contact him after I go abroad. I swear." She kept her word for the first 3 years. But she ultimately broke her promise. After getting the divorce papers, I went south alone. I didn't contact my family for 3 years. Recently, they contacted me to tell me that Chase and Sarah were getting married. Sarah made the call. "Taylor, come to my wedding. Only with you there will I feel less guilty." I was silent for a long time before saying okay. The day I arrived home was sunny and pleasant. As I walked in with my suitcase, Sarah rushed out of her room. Taylor. Her steps were light and quick. Despite the autumn chill, she only wore a thin nightgown. Chase followed her, carrying slippers and a jacket. Why can't you remember to wear shoes? Next time I'll. He stopped abruptly. He saw me. This was our first meeting since the divorce. I should have greeted him. At least out of politeness. I turned to him and nodded slightly. After 3 years, Chase looked the same. Except his eyes were less cold and more tender. He nodded and then looked away. Putting the jacket on. Sarah. Talk to her. I have work to attend to. Sarah approached me affectionately, putting her arm around mine. I was really afraid you wouldn't come. We're having a dress fitting tomorrow. Will you come with me? I said flatly. I have something to do tomorrow. Sarah frowned. Something important? Yes, very important. She thought for a moment. Then let's reschedule to the day after tomorrow. Finish early tomorrow and come back. I'm not staying home, I interrupted. Tell Mom and Dad I'm busy these days and won't be home. Then I pulled my suitcase and left without looking back. Not far away, a car slowly stopped in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Chase's handsome face. Get in, I'll take you. I politely refused. Thank you. No need. He was persistent. If I didn't get in, he would follow me. It's hard to hail a cab here. Get in. Being the endless road ahead. I finally gave in. I got into the car and gave him my address. He frowned slightly. Why aren't you staying at the Golden Bay? I don't like it. The Golden Bay apartment was given to me during the divorce. But he didn't know I'd already sold it. Chase's eyes darkened, but he didn't ask further. When we reached the building, I got out and Chase followed. He carried my suitcase, but didn't offer it to me. Let's go. I can manage myself. I tried to take the suitcase, but couldn't, looked around the surroundings. Are you having financial difficulties? This place was far inferior to the Golden Bay. No. He walked straight inside. Which building? Which floor? Chase was persistent. He was determined to get things done his way. I didn't insist. Walking silently ahead. We went up in the elevator. Standing at my door, I took the suitcase. Thank you. It's not convenient today. I won't invite you in. Wait. I turned around. How have you been all these years? Looking into his earnest eyes, I felt a moment of disorientation. I couldn't recall him ever speaking to me this way. Just as I was about to speak, the door suddenly opened. A tall, handsome man unexpectedly appeared. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, and a long, lean physique. He exuded an aura of raw masculinity. He stretched out his arm, pulling me into his embrace. Why so late, huh? He was about to kiss me. Just as his lips brushed mine, Chase's angry voice boomed from behind. What are you doing? But the man didn't stop. He gave me a deep kiss before slowly turning to Chase. His arms still around me. Words were directed at me. I was gone for only a short time. And you found someone new already? You're such a handful. I pushed him away. But he remained firm. I could only look at Chase. We can talk about this later. Chase's hands clenched into fists. His lips pressed together. This was a sign of his anger. But before he could erupt, I was pulled inside the apartment and the door closed. The man in front of me moved closer. If I remember correctly, you landed at 11. And it's 2 in the afternoon. 3 hours and you met your ex-husband already? I gently poked his muscular waist. Ethan. My hand was immediately grabbed. And the man said in a low voice, don't try to trick me. I held onto his shirt, silent. His large hand lifted my chin. The moment our eyes met, Ethan chuckled. I haven't started scolding you yet and you're already crying. I sniffed. I missed you so much. After the divorce, I moved south and opened a guest house in a small town. The town had a pleasant climate and the people were kind and welcoming. Interacting with them improved my mood significantly. Within a year, my guest house gained a good reputation and business picked up. Ethan was the most solitary guest. He mostly stayed in his room, rarely coming out. He only appeared on the patio when there were few people around. Initially, I worried about him and often paid attention to his movements. Then one day, I was sunbathing in the yard, when he approached me and asked with a smirk, "Do I look that suicidal?" I looked up in surprise. He lay down in the rocking chair beside me, relaxed and carefree. "I heard you on the phone." I was instantly embarrassed. "Last night I called a friend and mentioned Ethan. I said, that guy is pretty good looking. It would be a shame if you were gone unexpectedly." Ethan heard me. As I was embarrassed, Ethan suddenly asked, "You don't seem to be a local. Why did you decide to open a guest house here?" I made up a story. "I have plenty of money and nothing to do." A low chuckle escaped his throat. A beautiful sound. I couldn't help but look at him. And I saw a pleasing sight. The man lay resting on his arm, gazing at the horizon. His jawline was sharp and clear, his profile sculpted perfectly. Chase was already handsome, but Ethan was even more striking. Perhaps noticing my gaze, he turned and looked at me. I don't remember who looked away first. I only remember that from that day on, our interactions changed subtly. Our relationship progressed. During a mountain hike, a storm hit as we descended and heavy rain poured down. We rushed back to the guest house, soaked to the bone. That night, I developed a high fever. When I got up to take medicine, I broke a cup. Ethan burst in. Whether it was an illusion or a misremembered memory, I distinctly saw a look of fear on his face as he entered. But the moment his eyes fell on me, that fear was replaced by relief. My illness was severe, and I was bedridden for 5 days. Ethan took care of me for those 5 days. He moved his musical instruments to my room, and I learned he was a singer. "So you're always ready to leave?" I asked, holding a cup of hot water. He asked instead, "Do you want me to leave?" I didn't answer. He took the cup from my hands and suddenly kissed me. His hot breath burned against my skin. I held onto his shirt, my heart pounding. After that day, Ethan became the new master of the guest house. Changing light bulbs, repairing furniture. It all became his responsibility. The guests often joked, "You're so housewifey. Get the beautiful owner to marry you already." Whenever they did, he'd ask me, "When are you going to marry me?" I'd always laugh it off. He seemed indifferent. But when we were alone, he would find ways to tease me. Even if I begged him to stop, he wouldn't relent. I thought this would continue. But one day, Ethan disappeared. Today I saw him again. After that sudden departure, the more I thought about it, the more upset I became, tears streaming down my face. Ethan looked at me, waiting for an explanation. But I remained silent, just crying. After a while, the man who had been angry just moments ago sighed and cupped my face in his hands. "Completely smitten with you. So you're not leaving?" "Leave? You're like this. How can I leave you alone?" I still didn't trust him. Exhausted from crying, I clung to him. He had no choice but to lie down with me. I slept soundly that night. When I woke up, Ethan was gone. My phone was on silent. 99 plus missed calls. Half from Chase. Besides that, my dormant college alumni group suddenly became lively. Chase had posted a message about organizing a reunion. "Since it's organized by Chase, we have to go. Heard Ethan is coming back too. Invite him. It's him. I'm a big fan. I know his whereabouts. Rumor has it he's back to propose to the girl he secretly loved for 10 years. Just as I read that, my phone was taken away. Ethan's handsome face loomed over me. The screen went dark as Ethan's large, warm hand cupped the top of my phone, sliding it effortlessly out of my grip. He leaned down, his damp hair dripping a single cool drop of water onto my collarbone. He had just stepped out of the shower, a towel was draped loosely around his neck, exposing the sharp, defined lines of his collarbones and the dark, intricate ink of a tattoo running down his left ribs, a detail I had only recently discovered during our quiet nights in the South. "Looking at other men on your phone the moment you wake up?" Ethan asked, his voice low and raspy with morning fatigue. He tossed my phone onto the nightstand with a dull thud. "Should I be jealous, Taylor?" My heart did a strange, erratic fluttering inside my chest. I sat up, pulling the duvet over my chest, my mind still swirling with the text message I had just read on the alumni group chat. Rumor has it he's back to propose to the girl he secretly loved for 10 years. 10 years. 10 years ago, I was 18. I was the invisible, quiet girl sitting in the back row of lecture halls, buried behind towering stacks of classic literature and economics textbooks, while my sister Sarah danced under the warm spotlights of the main auditorium, captivating everyone who dared to look her way. 10 years ago was the year Sarah lifted Chase's shirt in the sunlit practice room, her fingers tracing his abs while I stood frozen outside the half-open door, holding 2 ice-cold lemonades that slowly melted in my hands. "Ethan," I murmured, my voice small, looking up into his dark, penetrating eyes. "The alumni group, they're talking about you." Ethan raised an eyebrow, picking up a smaller towel to dry his hair. The motion caused the muscles in his back to flex, raw and powerful. "Are they?" "I haven't checked that group in 5 years. They said you're coming to the reunion tonight," I whispered, watching his face closely, searching for any sign of hesitation or deceit. "They said, you're back in this city to propose to someone you've loved for 10 years. Ethan stopped moving. The room suddenly fell so quiet that I could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall and the distant rumble of morning traffic below. Slowly, he turned around. He didn't look flustered. He didn't look guilty. Instead, a slow, dangerous smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. He walked toward the bed, sinking his knee into the soft mattress, leaning over me until his shadow completely engulfed me. "And," he murmured, his thumb gently reaching out to trace my bottom lip, pressing softly until it parted. "Are you upset because I'm proposing, or because you think the girl isn't you?" My breath caught in my throat. Isn't it Sarah?" The moment the name left my lips, the playful warmth in Ethan's eyes vanished, replaced by an icy, sharp disdain so intense it made me shiver. "Sarah?" Ethan let out a harsh, mocking laugh. He bent down, pressing his forehead directly against mine, his hot breath fanning across my cheeks. "Taylor, do you really think every man in this damn world is as blind and brainless as Chase?" He leaned in and bit my lower lip, hard enough to sting, soft enough to make my blood run hot. "Listen to me carefully," Ethan growled softly, his fingers tightening around my waist, pulling me flushed against his warm body. "I don't give a damn about your sister. I never have. You're going to that reunion tonight, and you're going with me." By 7 in the evening, the grand banquet hall of the St. Regis Hotel was flooded with warm, golden light. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, casting shimmering reflections across polished marble floors and glasses of vintage champagne. This was Chase's territory. As the newly appointed CEO of his family's real estate empire, organizing a high-end alumni reunion was nothing more than a casual display of wealth and dominance. When I arrived at the entrance, wearing a simple, sleek black velvet dress that clung to my waist, I was alone. Ethan had told me to go ahead first. He had a short meeting with his manager in the hotel lobby downstairs. The moment I stepped into the hall, the gentle hum of conversation faltered for a fraction of a second. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Look, isn't that Taylor? She actually came? I thought she ran away to some backwater town after the divorce. Didn't you hear? She took half of Chase's assets when they broke up. Talk about a gold digger, shoo. Chase and Sarah are right over there." I kept my chin up, my expression impassive, ignoring the venomous glares and pitying looks. I walked toward the refreshment table, intending to grab a glass of water, when a familiar, sharp voice called out from behind me. "Taylor. You actually made it." I turned around. Sarah was standing there, leaning lightly on a sleek carbon fiber cane, dressed in a custom white silk gown that made her look fragile, ethereal, and utterly helpless. Holding her arm with an absolute protective rigidity was Chase. Chase wore a tailored charcoal suit. His eyes were dark, shadowed, and bloodshot, as if he hadn't slept a wink the entire night. The moment his gaze landed on me, his jaw clenched tightly. "Taylor," Sarah said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness as she took a small, painful step forward, clinging closer to Chase. "I was so worried you wouldn't come. Chase said you were staying at some cheap, terrible apartment complex. I told him we should buy you a proper place, but Chase said you were being stubborn." She looked up at Chase, her eyes wide and innocent. "Right, Chase?" Chase didn't look at Sarah. His intense, burning cold eyes were pinned entirely On me. Who was that man yesterday? Chase's voice was deep, raspy, and dangerously quiet, completely ignoring Sarah's comment. The circle of alumni surrounding us instantly went silent. Eager, gossiping eyes locked onto the three of us. Chase. Sarah tugged at his sleeve, her expression freezing slightly. What? Man? What are you talking about? Answer me, Taylor. Chase stepped forward, his breathing heavy, his hands clenching into tight fists at his sides. The composure he usually prided himself on was cracking at the seams. Who was the man in your apartment? You divorced me 3 years ago, went to the south, and now you bring a random gigolo back to the city? Is this how low you've sunk just to get my attention? A murmur of shock rippled through the crowd. Oh my God, Taylor found a gigolo? Is she trying to make Chase jealous? How pathetic. Chase is marrying Sarah in 2 days. I looked at Chase, feeling a sudden, profound wave of emptiness. How had I ever loved this man? How had I spent 4 years of my youth sitting silently in a cold, empty mansion, waiting for a man whose heart was permanently occupied by another woman, convincing myself that if I was just patient enough, kind enough, quiet enough, he would eventually look at me? Chase, I said calmly, taking a step back to distance myself from his suffocating presence. My personal life has nothing to do with you. We signed the papers 3 years ago. You are about to marry my sister. Keep your hands, and your mouth, out of my business. Your business? Chase took another forceful step toward me, his face twisted in a mixture of rage and something that looked terrifyingly like anguish. Taylor, you were my wife. You slept in my bed for 4 years. Do you think you can just erase that because some pretty-faced boy kissed you in front of me? Chase. Stop it. Sarah's voice cracked with genuine panic now. She grabbed Chase's arm with both hands, her face pale. Everyone is watching. Why do you care so much about who she's sleeping with? She's ruined. She took your money and fled. I'm the one standing beside you. Chase stiffened, but his eyes never left mine. She didn't take my money, he muttered bitterly, his voice laced with a strange, self-deprecating irony. She didn't spend a single cent of the alimony I gave her. She sold the Golden Bay apartment and left town without taking a single thing I bought her. She acted as if everything about me made her sick. Sarah froze. The surrounding crowd gasped. Before anyone could say another word, the heavy double doors of the grand banquet hall were pushed open. The click of polished leather shoes echoed against the marble floor, deliberate, unhurried, and commanding. Every head in the room turned. A tall figure walked in. He was wearing a dark midnight blue suit cut so precisely it emphasized every inch of his broad shoulders and long legs. His pitch-black hair was styled neatly back, exposing his sharp, immaculate forehead. And those piercing, amber-colored eyes that seemed to hold a natural, arrogant disdain for the world. Behind him walked 2 men in crisp suits, one holding an expensive leather briefcase, the other wearing the badge of the global entertainment giant, Aria Music Group. The crowd went dead silent. Is that Ethan Sterling? Someone gasped in a terrified whisper. The Ethan Sterling? The global music mogul and billionaire heir of the Sterling Group? Wait, he's the mystery singer who vanished from the public 3 years ago. Sarah's eyes widened in utter disbelief. Her mouth parted slightly as she stared at the man walking into the room. Chase's body went rigid. His eyes narrowed into slits as he recognized the man standing at the entrance. It was the exact same man who had pulled Taylor into his arms and kissed her inside that dingy apartment hallway yesterday afternoon. Ethan didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at the luxury decor, nor did he acknowledge the stunned silence of the city's elite. His eyes scanned the room until they landed directly on me. The icy, intimidating aura surrounding him melted instantly. A soft, devastatingly handsome smile broke across his face. He ignored everyone, walking straight past Chase and Sarah, stopping right in front of me. Sorry I'm late, Ethan said softly, his deep voice carrying clearly across the silent hall. He reached out, his long fingers gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered warm against my cheek. The board meeting dragged on. Did you miss me? I looked at him, my heart hammering against my ribs. Ethan, what are you doing? I told you, Ethan murmured, bending down slightly so his lips were just inches from my ear. I came here to settle an old debt. And to take what's mine. Sterling. Chase's voice tore through the air, sharp and furious. He stepped between us, forcing his way into Ethan's line of sight. What is the meaning of this? This is my private event. What are you doing with my ex-wife? Ethan slowly straightened up. The warmth in his eyes vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, condescending stare as he looked down at Chase. Your ex-wife? Ethan sneered, a small, cold laugh escaping his chest. Mr. Vance, if I recall correctly, you surrendered all rights to call her yours the moment you signed those divorce papers 3 years ago. She was playing games with me. Chase barked, his chest heaving. She ran away to the south just to make me feel guilty. And now she brings you here to embarrass me and Sarah on the eve of our wedding? Embarrass you? Ethan chuckled softly, leaning one hand casually into his trousers pocket. Chase, you overestimate yourself. Taylor didn't bring me here. I brought her here. Ethan paused, turning his head slightly to glance at the crowd of alumni who were holding their breaths, watching the spectacle unfold. 10 years ago, Ethan began, his voice smooth, clear, and ringing with absolute authority. A quiet girl used to sit in the third row of the Central Library every Tuesday afternoon. She spent 4 hours reading historical economics, never raising her head, never complaining, never asking for attention. My breath caught. My hands began to tremble. Third row of the Central Library. Tuesdays. I sat 2 rows behind her, Ethan continued, his dark eyes fixing onto mine with an intensity that made the rest of the world blur into insignificance. I wrote 3 entire albums sitting behind her, watching the afternoon sun hit her hair. But I was arrogant. I thought I had time. I left for my international tour, thinking I'd come back and tell her how I felt. Ethan's gaze shifted back to Chase, his expression darkening into pure, unadulterated coldness. When I came back, I found out she had been forced to marry a coward who didn't even know her worth, a man who treated her like a ghost in his own house while pining over her sister. The banquet hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Sarah's face had turned completely ghost white. Her hands were trembling violently as she clutched her carbon fiber cane. No. That's impossible. Ethan, you were looking at me back in college. You came to my dance recitals. Ethan didn't even bother to turn his head toward Sarah. I went to those recitals because Taylor was forced to manage the backstage wardrobe for you. The only reason I ever stepped foot into a dance hall was to make sure she didn't trip over your discarded costumes in the dark. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Sarah looked as if she had been slapped violently across the face. She staggered backward, her heel catching on her gown. She would have tumbled to the floor if Chase hadn't reflexively caught her waist. But Chase wasn't looking at Sarah. He was staring at Ethan, his eyes wide with a terrifying realization, his face drained of all color. You, Chase stammered, his voice shaking violently. The singer, the mysterious donor who funded Taylor's guest house in the South, it was you? It wasn't a guest house, Ethan corrected smoothly, stepping forward and wrapping his arm firmly around my waist, pulling me close against his side. It was her haven. A place where no toxic family could reach her. A place where no arrogant ex-husband could bother her. Ethan looked down at me, his eyes overflowing with a raw, undeniable devotion that left me utterly breathless. 3 years ago, I gave her time to heal, Ethan murmured, his voice softening. Just for me. I waited patiently until she was ready to love again. And now, I'm done waiting. Without another word, Ethan reached into his inner suit pocket and pulled out a small, dark velvet box. The entire room held its breath. Chase's eyes went bloodshot. Don't you dare. Chase roared, taking a wild step forward, dropping Sarah completely. Taylor. Don't you dare look at him. You loved me. You loved me for 4 years. You can't just marry someone else. I never loved you, Chase, I spoke up, my voice clear, firm, and ringing with absolute truth for the first time in my life. Chase froze in his tracks, staring at me as if I had stabbed him through the heart. I love the idea of being chosen, I said, looking straight into Chase's crumbling eyes. I was the daughter who was never loved by her parents. I was the sister who was always pushed into the shadows. When your family forced you to marry me, I foolishly thought that maybe, just maybe, I could have a home of my own. But you proved to me every single day that I was just a temporary stand-in. I turned my back on Chase completely, facing Ethan. Ethan dropped to one knee on the cold marble floor. He flipped open the velvet box, revealing a flawless, pear-cut blue diamond that shimmered like a captured star under the grand chandeliers. Taylor Vance, Ethan said, his dark eyes locked onto mine, completely unbothered by the jaw-dropping crowd around us. Will you do me the honor of letting me love you, protecting you, and spoiling you for the rest of our lives? Will you marry me? Tears finally welled up in my eyes, spilling over my lashes and running down my cheeks, not tears of sorrow, but tears of absolute liberation. Yes, I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. Yes, Ethan. I will. Ethan smiled, a radiant, breathtaking smile, as he slid the heavy diamond ring onto my finger. He stood up, pulled me by the waist, and lifted me slightly off the ground, bringing his lips down onto mine in a deep, possessive, and triumphant kiss right in the middle of the hall. Behind us, the sound of a cane clattering onto the floor echoed sharply, followed by Sarah's hysterical sobbing and Chase's desperate, hollow shouts of my name. But I didn't turn back. Not once. The aftermath of the alumni reunion hit the city's high society circles like a terrifying tsunami. Within 24 hours, rumors about the Vance family and my parents reached a boiling point. The news that Ethan Sterling, the reclusive heir to Sterling Group and global music icon, had publicly proposed to Chase Vance's ex-wife swept through social media and news outlets. That evening, I was sitting on the plush sofa in Ethan's penthouse apartment, overlooking the glittering city skyline, sipping warm tea, when my phone rang. Frantically. It was my mother. I looked at the flashing caller ID for a long moment before pressing answer and putting it on speaker. Taylor. My mother's voice erupted through the speaker, hysterical, shrill, and bordering on insane. What have you done? What kind of spell did you cast on Ethan Sterling? Do you know what's happening home right now? Good evening, Mom, I said plainly, taking a quiet sip of my tea. Don't call me Mom. You heartless, ungrateful monster, she screamed. The Sterling Group just pulled all their investments from Chase's company. Chase's board of directors is forcing him to step down as CEO. And your sister, Sarah, is locking herself in her room, crying her eyes out, threatening to jump off the balcony. I remained silent, watching the warm steam rise from my teacup. Taylor, are you listening to me? My mother shrieked. You need to fix this. Right now. Go tell Ethan Sterling that you won't marry him. Tell him to give the investments back to Chase. Your sister's wedding is tomorrow. How is she supposed to get married when Chase is ruined and mentally unstable? Mom, I said softly, my voice devoid of any warmth. Do you remember what you told me 3 years ago on the day I got divorced? The line went quiet for a second. You told me, I continued slowly, repeating every single word that had burned into my memory. Now that you're divorced, don't contact him anymore. Your sister injured her leg, and she needs Chase. Don't upset her. That marriage was always meant for your sister. I was just looking out for Sarah, my mother stuttered, her tone turning defensive. Sarah was injured. She couldn't dance anymore. And what about me? I asked softly. When I was left in the rain for 2 hours, burning with a high fever, coughing up blood in the hospital room alone while Chase was sitting at Sarah's bedside, who was looking out for me. You were healthy, my mother yelled back without an ounce of hesitation. You were fine. Why do you always hold on to these petty grudges? You're her sister. You're supposed to yield to her. A heavy hand rested gently on my shoulder. Ethan had walked into the living room, clad in a loose black sweater. His face was dark, his jaw tight with suppressible fury as he heard my mother's toxic words. He gently took the phone from my hand and brought it to his lips. Mrs. Vance, Ethan's voice was like ice cutting through glass, quiet, precise, and utterly terrifying. My mother's hysterical shouting stopped instantly. Ethan? Mr. Sterling? Listen to me very carefully, Ethan said, his voice dripping with venomous calm. If you, your husband, or your spoiled daughter ever call Taylor again, I will not just ruin Chase Vance's company. I will personally ensure that your family's business goes bankrupt by the end of this week. You will lose your house, your cars, and every cent you have ever used to favor Sarah over Taylor. Mr. Sterling. You can't do that. We are Taylor's parents. You ceased being her parents the day you abandoned her in the rain, Ethan snapped coldly. Touch her again, and see what happens. Ethan hung up the phone and threw it onto the cushion. He immediately pulled me into his arms, burying his face in the crook of my neck, holding me so tightly, as if he was trying to fuse me into his skin. I'm sorry, Ethan whispered, his chest heaving. I'm sorry I wasn't there 4 years ago to protect you from them. I wrapped my arms around his waist, resting my head against his pounding chest. You're here now, Ethan. That's all that matters. The next afternoon was supposed to be Chase and Sarah's grand wedding day. Instead, it turned into the biggest scandal the city had seen in a decade. Ethan and I didn't attend, but the news swept through every media channel. As it turned out, Ethan's legal team hadn't just pulled the Sterling Group's investments, they had also released a comprehensive investigation into Sarah's time abroad. The public discovered that Sarah hadn't lost her ability to dance because of a tragic accident while pursuing her passion. In reality, she had entered into a volatile relationship with a wealthy, married foreign businessman abroad. When the businessman's wife found out, she had Sarah kicked out of the dance troupe and legally blacklisted. In a fit of desperate rage, Sarah had jumped from a venue balcony during an argument, fracturing her leg. She hadn't come back to Chase out of love. She had come back because she was ruined, penniless, and needed a rich, gullible safety net. When Chase found out the truth on the morning of their wedding, he completely snapped. Witnesses at the venue reported that Chase threw the wedding ring into Sarah's face in front of hundreds of guests, calling her a deceitful leech, before leaving her sobbing in her white gown on the aisle floor. My parents tried to beg Chase for mercy, but Chase's family, furious over the loss of their corporate backing, kicked my parents out of the hotel and cut all financial ties with them. Later that evening, as rain began to patter gently against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan's apartment, my doorbell rang. Ethan was in the kitchen preparing dinner, the fragrant aroma of seared steak and fresh herbs filling the air. I walked over to the hallway and opened the door. Standing in the dimly lit corridor was Chase. He was completely soaked from the rain. His expensive suit was wrinkled and drenched, his hair hanging messily over his eyes. He held a crumpled, wet paper bag in his hands. He looked like a broken ghost of the powerful man he used to be. Taylor, Chase croaked, his voice raw and broken. I stood at the doorway, my expression distant and calm. What are you doing here, Chase? Chase took a shaky step forward, his eyes desperately searching my face, pleading for a sliver of the warmth I used to offer him. I broke off the wedding, Chase choked out, tears mixing with the rainwater running down his pale cheeks. I left her. I know the truth now, Taylor. I know everything. She lied to me, she used me. I was so blind. He held out the wet paper bag with trembling hands. I went to our old house. I found the notebooks you left behind, Chase sobbed, his chest heaving violently. The recipes you wrote down for my stomach ulcers, the thermal blankets you packed for my business trips, the 4 years of quiet love you gave me that I completely threw away. Chase dropped to his knees right in front of my door, weeping hysterically, reaching out to grab the hem of my dress. Taylor, please, please give me another chance. Chase pleaded, his forehead pressing against the cold tiles of the hallway. I'll give you everything. My company, my money, my life. Just come back to me. I realize now, it was always you. I love you, Taylor. I love you so much it's killing me. I looked down at the man kneeling at my feet. For years ago, I would have given my life to hear him say those words. I would have cried tears of joy if he had looked at me with even a fraction of that intensity. But sitting inside my heart now was not pain, nor anger, nor lingering affection. There was only a quiet, absolute void. Chase, I said softly, my voice as gentle as a fading evening breeze. Chase looked up, his eyes filled with a desperate, pathetic ray of hope. When you left me waiting in the rain for 2 hours 3 years ago, I Murmured, looking into his eyes. My body was burning with fever, but my heart became completely ice cold. You didn't kill my love for you yesterday, Chase. You killed it 3 years ago. Chase's eyes dilated. The tiny spark of hope inside him shattered into fine dust. The man inside, I continued, pointing lightly toward the living room, didn't wait for me to get sick to notice me. He didn't wait until I was ruined to hold my hand. He loved me when I was a quiet nobody sitting in a library, and he loved me when I was a broken woman running a small guest house in the South. I stepped back into the apartment, gently taking hold of the door handle. Goodbye, Chase. Don't ever come back. Taylor. No. Taylor. Chase screamed, reaching out desperately, but the door clicked smoothly shut, locking him out in the cold corridor forever. I turned around. Ethan was standing at the end of the hallway, wearing an apron, holding a wooden spoon in his hand. He looked at me, a soft, understanding gaze in his dark amber eyes. I walked over to him, wrapping my arms around his waist, resting my head against his warm chest, listening to his steady, comforting heartbeat. Is he gone? Ethan asked quietly, his hand gently stroking my back. Yes, I smiled, looking up into his eyes. He's gone. Ethan set the spoon down, cupping my face in his hands, pressing his lips gently against my forehead, then my nose, and finally onto my lips in a tender, lingering kiss. Good, Ethan whispered against my mouth, his eyes sparkling with boundless warmth and deep passion. Because our life is just beginning, Mrs. Sterling. I wrapped my hands around his neck, pulling him closer, letting the warmth of his love wash over me, completely erasing every dark cloud of my past. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside, I had finally found my home.